What are the most important issues facing Métis today?
Good question. This is, that's pretty much kind of what I do now, is helping deal with those issues. But for our communities today, our often statistics show that it's almost like our history sort of repeating itself again. In statistics, in educational attainment, in health outcomes, and all those sorts of things, we're below the Canadian average, but somewhat higher often than First Nations communities, right? And often that's because of the extreme isolation in a lot of First Nations communities that is an issue that certainly needs to be dealt with. But working on, for me, one of the biggest things that I'm passionate about is the recognition of the Métis people, right? All too often, government and industry and school boards and things, they forget that we're here entirely, right? That for me is I think is at the core of a lot of our issues, right? Because if government, if industry doesn't recognize that we're here, recognize that we're a rights-bearing people, recognize that we undeniably have Section 35 constitutionally protected rights, if they don't recognize those things, it's going to be impossible for us to deal with those issues, right? Those issues of educational attainment, of poverty, of loss of language, right? We were talking about Michif language, loss of language, and then access to land, because the Métis people, if there's a slide there, Peter, I think it's, that one. So essentially, inside of that blue circle, right, that's sort of the history of when settlers established the first settlements in what is now central Canada, they refer to it as. I don't know how that happens because it's definitely on the pretty extreme one side. But anyway, everything inside those red lines is what we sort of identify today as the Métis homeland, right? From Georgian Bay westward, essentially, right? And that territory, we're statistically we're the largest Indigenous nation in North America, and that's certainly a shared territory. We don't claim any exclusivity over it, but that territory is the place that gave birth to our people, right? And today, there were many treaty promises made. In Ontario, there are many outstanding land issues here in Ontario. In Manitoba, the Manitoba Métis Federation is just now being able to deal with their land claim that's outstanding since 1870. And in Alberta, Alberta is the only place in Canada where Métis have actual recognized land, and there's 8 essentially like reserves. It's almost the same setup as what government has set up for First Nations. There's the 8 Métis settlements in Alberta. But outside of Alberta, it's very difficult for our people to maintain our culture, considering that that's the vast expanse of territory that we used to be able to live off of. And today, with the exception of in Alberta, right, there is no place that we can call our home, right? There is no place that we can just go to, and that to just be our community, right? So those are some of the issues that we're dealing with today.